Good evening. I'm Christine Devine, and this is a Fox 11 News special report, The Youngest Victims. Tonight we look at how underage children fall into the grip of sex traffickers. We'll look at what's being done to stop it and who's stepping in to help the girls after they've been rescued. As Gina Silva shows us, Southern California is one of the largest hubs in the world for child sex trafficking.
I felt helpless. I thought that I was going to die on the streets and kind of wished for it. That would have been my easy way out instead of having to relive, this terror every single day.
When I used to get beat or they used to verbally abuse me, any type of abuse, I was scared to leave because of the threats.
You feel like, how can this person love me and he beats me? How come this person loves me and he lets 60 other men have sex with me or rape me or mistreat me?
As it is that fear of not knowing if you're going to escape or get out of it.
Meet Kay and Shaylin, survivors of human trafficking.
No, it's right here in our backyard.
Ori is a survivor too. All three are free now, but they spent their childhood living as sex slaves. Victims of the fastest growing organized crime, generating $32 billion a year.
There are an estimated 20 million victims worldwide. California is one of the nation's top destinations for trafficking of human beings.
In Orange County, law enforcement is doing everything it can to raise awareness. But the problem keeps growing, with younger and younger victims getting sucked in to this unbelievable nightmare.
How big of a problem is this? Human trafficking is a much bigger problem than originally anticipated. Right now, we're averaging 8 new human trafficking victims a month, and that's with one law enforcement agency proactively addressing human trafficking. There are over 30 law enforcement agencies here in Orange County, so imagine what the numbers would look like if everyone had the capacity to look for human trafficking.
According to investigators, 79% of human trafficking victims are sold for nothing more than sex. Orange County arrested 57 people last year for sex trafficking. Their victims rescued from a life of torture.
We have seen women literally kidnapped and held hostage in hotels to be serially raped for money from their perpetrators.
This is a problem that's happening in our own backyards.
Dr. Stephanie Powell is a retired LAPD sergeant who now spends her time helping teens find a way off the streets.
When you look at the amount of girls that are missing, I don't think it's a far stretch to say that some of them probably are missing as a direct result of domestic human sex trafficking.
Joining us now with more on these youngest victims is Gina Silva. Now, the FBI has a theory on many of the missing children in this country.
The FBI and law enforcement across the country, they believe that many of the missing children, 300,000 a year, and many of them never come back. So they believe that they are, in fact, human sex trafficking victims. But, it's not just kids who are kidnapped. They're also sold into slavery by even relatives.
I was going to ask you, do they know these people that are taking them and holding them often or not?
Well, some of the kids that are at risk are foster kids, runaways, and troubled teens, because they really don't have a family base. They're looking for love in all the wrong places.
Nowhere to go.
Exactly. So the strangers offer this, and they think, oh, great, I've got someone who cares about me. And in fact, they have bad intentions. And they're sold into sex trafficking rings. And it's just horrific. And trying to get out of it, when we heard from these girls,
let's learn more about who's doing this.
Absolutely. So who is behind all of this? Well, they are friendly and they are charming when they first approach their targets. But then, without warning, they turn violent and dangerous. Tonight, we'll expose the tricks pimps use to lure their youngest victims.
Sex predators hiding behind the keyboard, luring girls into their sick world. Kay knows exactly how that can turn out.
Meeting a stranger, not knowing who this person was, and both those times was raped and forced to do things that I didn't want to do, and that has haunted me my entire life.
For Shaylin, it was a guy in her neighborhood preying on her insecurities.
He tricked me so many ways, and telling me I'm beautiful, telling me that I was worth something, telling me all these things to bribe me in and pull me up.
Love, you don't really know what love is. It's everywhere.
Ori was only 11 when she ran away from home and was picked up by a man who promised to love her.
He told me things that any average man would tell a woman. I love you, I care for you, I'm gonna keep you safe, I'm not gonna hurt you.
But within 72 hours, Ori says that man became violent and threatened to kill her if she didn't do exactly what he demanded.
And I was forced to get out the car, or he would have drugged me by my hair, and I was told to have sex for money. There, that first night, I lost everything.
I think it's a bigger problem than people realize. The Center for Missing and Exploited Children tell us that almost 300,000 kids are at risk in this country.
Susan Patterson is the author of How You Can Fight Human Trafficking. She says any way you look at it, the men luring these girls are pimps. 3 different types: the Romeo pimp, gorilla pimp, and CEO pimp.
The Romeo pimp is the boyfriend. He's meeting kids online, he's going where teens hang out, and young girls are naive. You know, I think of you every minute of every day, you're my soulmate, your home life sucks, run away with me.
It's just hard once you get sucked in to even come out.
Once Shaylin was sucked in by the promise of being loved, her pimp then became violent. Sex trafficking experts describe him as a gorilla pimp.
So the gorilla pimp would be gangs where they force you, they say if you don't do what we tell you to do, we're going to kill your family.
The CEO pimp tricks girls into thinking he's offering them a great opportunity.
The CEO pimp uses trickery. So that would be someone who's offering teens modeling jobs. In one case, he would go out to the clubs and solicit college girls. He had 70-plus victims over 7 years that he forced into human trafficking.
And I know what the young girls are going through out there. You know, a lot of us, I know for myself, when I got tired, I was nowhere to run.
All right, Gina Silva's back with us. You know, working in this business, I've heard of these stories. I've met people working to try to curb this problem. But then I got a call from a girlfriend one day who said a friend's niece was missing, had met a guy online, and hadn't heard from her since. And it was something like this. Where does the internet fall in with this?
Oh, it is so awful. For parents, it's so important. You have to be on top of what your kids are doing when it comes to social media, because you really don't know what they're doing. And they could be meeting what they think is another teenager. Yeah. And it's really an adult who wants to wants to harm these kids. It happens all the time. Kay, one of the girls that we interviewed, she met someone online and she ended up getting raped, and then it led to all kinds of different problems.
I got to think the internet is a game changer with this, what's been going on for probably a very long time.
Yes. And it's so important just to raise awareness, what we're doing, just talking about it, because a lot of people think prostitution, oh, well, they chose that life.
Exactly.
It's not that. Not all the time.
Gina, okay. Still ahead tonight on this Fox 11 news special, we'll meet the people leading the fight on sex crimes against children right here in Southern California. Welcome back to our Fox 11 News special, The Youngest Victims. Gina Silva has been investigating how underage children wind up in the hands of sex traffickers. It's so sad to think some of them, it's by someone they know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not always a stranger. Sometimes it's an uncle, or it could be their own father. After one of our stories aired, a man called us. He's from Florida, and now he goes around the country speaking about human sex trafficking. At the age of 5 years old, he was sold by his own dad to his friends. And so from 5 until he was a teenager, that was his life.
All right, so law enforcement,
going on dates.
Law enforcement is on this.
Yes, absolutely. Human sex trafficking generates more than $30 billion a year. Usually, experts say predators start with child pornography, then they move on to trafficking. But the LAPD's Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force is working to protect the youngest victims.
They strike when least expected. LAPD's Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, ICAC, serving search warrants to people suspected of downloading and distributing child pornography.
People often think of child pornography as pictures of young girls on beaches or in bikinis. It is not. It is the photographic and video evidence of child rape.
The images are usually found on file-sharing websites. Pedophiles download and upload their own images depicting children being raped. These are the sites detectives monitor on a regular basis.
We have tools as law enforcement to identify targets or persons who are downloading or trading in child pornography on the internet, and we've identified this particular location as a place where child porn was being downloaded.
The videos and photographs are heartbreaking. Little girls and boys being sexually abused by different men. At this apartment in Hollywood, members of the task force discovered more than 700 photos of children. Some of the victims, toddlers in diapers.
Small children being, all their orifices being violated. You're making faces. To us, it's what we see on a daily basis, unfortunately.
Lieutenant Andrea Grossman is the head of the ICAC in Los Angeles. She says the job takes a toll on its members, but it's a job that must be done in order to stop pedophiles before they move on from child pornography to real-life victims.
It starts with photos, and then it generally progresses, at least for us. They progress to finding individuals of the age preference that they have. And then we have found that they sometimes will buy children or sell children.
Since 2006, this specialized unit has arrested nearly 1,800 people. Investigators serve up to 3 search warrants a week. They work long hours trying to combat a behavior that could lead to sex trafficking.
Unfortunately, it does progress, and we feel a lot of these guys are on the cusp of actually making contact with a child.
We could double or triple the size of our unit, and we would still be finding more predators.
On a typical search warrant, detectives interview the suspect while investigators search for evidence that isn't always so easy to find.
We found actually hard drives that have been hidden away in closets, in between the mattresses. Things that you think are old and wouldn't be working anymore are actually what they're using. Some people take their child pornography and treat it like the dirty secret that they're going to keep on the old computer that nobody else uses. So some things we think we could eliminate, we've actually found the evidence on.
In Whittier, the unit recently arrested a former sheriff's deputy for possession and distribution of child pornography. On his computer drives, detectives found numerous photographs showing men sexually abusing 5-year-old girls.
Every time we put somebody away that shares or creates or trades that images, we're protecting those children and future children that could be victimized.
The former deputy was taken into custody and his 2 small children placed with the Department of Children and Family Services.
We get a lot of satisfaction from rescuing the child, but we also have to see the horrific images, and the secondary trauma is really difficult for my personnel. But the bottom line is we're rescuing children.
Thank God for those people willing to do that tough job. You said there's a psychologist on hand with them?
Yes, at any time, whenever they need one, because they see these images and they are horrific. I saw these pictures and I'm telling you, I'm never going to forget those images.
Well, better you than me. I'd rather not see them.
Yeah.
But thank you for the report. Still ahead tonight on this Fox 11 News special, we'll show you the people that are really helping the youngest victims make a new life for themselves. Welcome back to our Fox 11 News special, The Youngest Victims. Gina Silva has been investigating the sex trafficking of underage children. Now we look at the people who help rescue them. I love this lady you're about to profile. She is amazing.
Yeah, her story, you know, it doesn't get better than this, because this is a person who's completely changed her life. For years, Lori Burns was a prostitute, addicted to heroin. It was a life she never thought she'd escape, but Lori did. And now she's helping to rescue other girls who are falling into sex trafficking.
There were so many girls on the street that were killed on the street. People that I knew, people that I worked the streets with. There were so many girls that had AIDS. The thought of getting out just didn't even exist.
Lori Burns is a survivor with an amazing story to tell.
If you could imagine being like 18, 19 years old and on the street and knowing nobody's looking for you and nobody's coming, I mean, day after day, it just wears on you.
Burns was a foster kid, and when she aged out of the system, she suddenly found herself homeless. That's when her older sister turned her onto prostitution.
I started prostituting when I was 19 years old, and I continued to prostitute until I was almost 23 years old. And I was almost dead. I mean, I was just horribly destroyed.
mentally and physically.
She was arrested multiple times. Still, Burns could not give up that life. She remembers one night, 2 men picked her up and drove her to an isolated area. They beat and raped her.
After a couple of times having that gun to my head and being beat up real bad, I thought, you know what, Lori? You don't have anything to live for anyway. You've always wanted to die. I mean, I'd been suicidal ever since I was a little girl. And I thought, oh my God, now's your time, Lori. You get them to kill you. And I started screaming, kill me, like as loud as I could, just kill me. Like, do it already, thinking they're going to take the gun and boom, it's going to be over. And I scared them. So they beat me up and they left me unconscious on the side of the canyon road.
She survived, says the near-death experience brought on a spiritual awakening. Burns decided that night to seek help. 27 years later.
I'm going to give you my card because I used to be on the street myself. You have my phone number. And if you don't want to use it, give it to somebody else and say, girlfriend, call this lady. So now I've spent my life since that day, since my life was saved, going back on the street and finding all of the other children that are left out there and bringing them back and giving them what I was given, a safe place to live, a sober, safe place to live, and schooling so that they can get an education.
This is one of those safe places. Freehab, a shelter in the San Fernando Valley for victims of sex trafficking. The women get food, shelter, counseling, detox, and training for a career.
When people ask what we do, I say we're a parent to the parentless. We go find the kids that think nobody's coming because if we're coming to get them.
Lori says foster kids, runaways, and troubled teens are the most at risk for sex trafficking.
I think if people knew how bad this problem was, they would be astounded. And most people think it only occurs in other countries. It's here. It's in our neighborhoods. It's everywhere. We had one little girl who was sold into sex trafficking with her foster sister. The little girl that we have got arrested, and when she got arrested, she told the police what happened and she got out. This was several years ago. The little sister's still there.
And remember Kay and Shayland, who shared their horrific stories?
I was living in a world that was just nothing but just ugliness.
I felt hopeless. I thought that I was going to die on the streets and kind of wished for it.
They were taken in by Lori, and now they're on their way to transforming their lives.
I just made a choice and said, you know, I'm tired, and I walked away.
I think Lori is amazing. My dream is to do and be what Lori is. So that's the woman I want to follow in her footsteps.
And this is my family.
I'm so grateful to have such a nice and a beautiful facility and so much opportunity here.
I truly believe that my life was saved on that canyon road that night to be right here. And the only way we're going to fix this thing is to start picking up the kids, because the kids are like 1% of our population, but they're 100% of our future.
What a story.
And about that facility, she's really grown. It's amazing.
It's
Tell us
a
about
beautiful
that.
facility. The facility looks like a nice hotel.
Good for her.
You know,
she
the
got backing.
Yes, yeah. She got a lot of backing, and people really believe in what she's doing, because when you look at her story, I mean, it is amazing.
And the foster kids, you know, I work with foster kids, so that touches my heart. Why do you think so many end up in this sex trafficking industry?
Well, as Lori was explaining, as a foster kid, at the age of 18, you're out of the system.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't have any family. So you're alone. Maybe you don't have an education. You don't have any relatives. What do you do?
Very easy to fall into the wrong hands.
Absolutely.
All right, Gina, we're going to have more coming up still ahead. How to find more information about the youngest victims and what you can do to help. We are back here with our special on the youngest victims, and I just want to tell one story about Lori Burns, who you just profiled. I had a foster kid call me at one point out on the streets, was even suicidal. I didn't know what to do. I called Lori, and she said, I will go pick him up. There is only one Lori Burns, though. So what did you take away from this after covering this special, knowing about the young people out there?
You know, there are a lot of agencies that are now geared toward helping victims of sex trafficking. So they're out there, and they always say, you know, if you see a girl out there or a boy who seems like they're out of place, don't be afraid to go and approach them. You know, ask them, are you okay? Give them your number. You never know. I'll tell you, one of the things that really struck with me was Ori. At 11 years old, as she mentioned. 11, yes. She was, you know, sold into slavery, basically. And she was forced into prostitution. To this day, now, you know, it's been many years and she's been away from that life. Yeah. But she can't get away from that. It's a struggle every day.
I can imagine. And I got to tell you, watching this series you've been doing really opened my eyes, because I thought so much of this came with women or girls from foreign countries, or even people going to foreign countries.
Here.
Happening right here. All right, Gina, thanks much. And we thank you for watching this Fox 11 News special, The Youngest Victims. I'm Christine Devine with Gina Silva. If you'd like more information on our Fox 11 News series, The Youngest Victims, including a look at the people working to rescue underage children from human traffickers, please go to our website. It's myfoxla.com. Good night.